What if I told you that in the 1950s, some of the most elegant cars were also surprisingly fast? Imagine this: convertibles, cars built to enjoy the air, the scenery, the feeling of freedom, not to race, not to compete, not to be the fastest, or at least that's what they seemed, because while most were focused on style, some brands decided to do something different. Big engines, real power, performance that didn't fit the idea of an open-top car. And that completely breaks expectations, because a convertible shouldn't be the fastest, but some of them were. 1957 Chevrolet Corvette C1. This car doesn't look like a typical 1950s convertible, and that's the key. Because while most open cars of this era were built for something else, comfort, style, presence, the Corvette came from a different place, from intention. Imagine the context. Mid-1950s America, European sports cars starting to gain attention, lighter, more agile, more focused. And Chevrolet responds with this, but not with something soft or elegant or relaxed. It responds with a car that wants to compete, and you can feel it. The proportions are tighter, lower, more direct. No unnecessary excess. Everything points toward one clear idea: performance. And when you get to what really matters, it shows. Under the hood, the 283 V8 with mechanical fuel injection produced up to 283 horsepower, a number that wasn't just strong for the time, it was symbolic. 1 horsepower per cubic inch. And in 1957, that was serious. But beyond the number, what matters is what it represented. Because this wasn't just a powerful engine, it was advanced technology. Fuel injection changed the response, the precision, the way the car reacted. And that put it on another level. In performance terms, it could do 0 to 60 miles per hour in around 5.5 to 6 seconds, and exceed 125 miles per hour. And that's no longer fast for a convertible. That's just fast. No excuses. There's a key detail. This car doesn't try to hide what it is. No deception, no extreme contrast. From the very first moment, it tells you, this is different. And it delivers. When you look at its value today, that's reflected as well. A fuel-injected Corvette C1 can easily exceed $150,000, with exceptional examples reaching much higher. 1957. Oldsmobile 98 Starfire. This car does look like a typical convertible, and that's where it deceives you, because everything about it suggests something else. Size, comfort, soft lines. The kind of car you imagine cruising down an avenue, not launching hard from a stoplight. Luxury, first and foremost. Or at least, that's how it feels. But Oldsmobile in those years was playing a different game. It didn't just want elegant cars. It wanted them to respond. And this is one of the best examples, because at first glance, there's no aggression, no sporty intent. Everything feels fluid, heavy, almost relaxed. But when you get to what really matters, the story changes. Under the hood, the 371 Rocket V8 delivered around 300 horsepower, a very serious number for the time, especially in a car this large. And that's the point. Because this isn't a light car, it isn't compact. It wasn't designed to race. And yet, it can. In period tests, it could reach 0 to 60 miles per hour in around 7 to 8 seconds. Something completely unexpected for a car with this kind of presence. And that creates the perfect contrast. Because this car doesn't look fast, but it also refuses to be slow. There's a key detail. Oldsmobile was one of the brands that best understood how to combine luxury with real performance without breaking the car's identity. It didn't need to make it aggressive. It just needed to make sure it never fell behind. And you can feel that here. When you look at its value today, that's reflected as well. A 1957 Oldsmobile 98 Starfire convertible typically ranges between $40,000 and $90,000, depending on condition and originality. It's not the most radical, it's not the most obvious, but it's probably one of the most surprising. 1959 Pontiac Bonneville. This car doesn't try to hide anything, and yet it still surprises, because the Bonneville already communicates strength from the very first glance. Long, low, with a presence that doesn't feel made just for cruising. It feels tighter, more intentional, like it's not entirely comfortable being just a convertible. And that makes sense, because Pontiac, at that moment, was already pushing in a different direction. Big cars, yes, but with a clearer performance mindset. And this is one of the clearest examples. There's no disguise, no complete deception, but there's also no explicit promise of what it can really do. And that's the point. Under the hood, the 389 V8 with tri-power delivered around 310 horsepower, 3 carburetors working together, not for smoothness, but for response. And you can feel it, because this car doesn't react slowly. It doesn't drag itself forward. It responds. With weight, yes, but with intention. In performance terms, it could reach 0 to 60 miles per hour in around 7 seconds, placing it directly among the fastest in its class. And that completely changes the perception, because this isn't just an elegant car, it's a capable one. There's an important detail. The Bonneville was one of the models that helped build Pontiac's reputation as a more focused, more active, and more performance-oriented brand within the American market. And this car is part of that shift. When you look at its value today, that's reflected as well. A 1959 Pontiac Bonneville convertible typically ranges between $50,000 and $100,000, depending on condition and configuration. And now, I want to know something. Out of the ones we've seen so far, do you go with the Corvette, direct and unapologetic, the Oldsmobile, quietly surprising, or this Bonneville that blends both worlds? I'll read you in the comments. 1957, DeSoto Adventurer. This car wasn't an obvious choice, and that's exactly what makes it so interesting. Because when you think of fast convertibles from the 1950s, your mind goes to Chevrolet, maybe Pontiac, maybe Cadillac, but DeSoto almost never comes up. And yet, it should, because this car wasn't playing around. It wasn't trying to compete on image. It was competing on performance, and that becomes clear when you analyze it. At first glance, it's still big, elegant, with that typical presence of the era, nothing that completely breaks the mold. But there's something different, a sense that this car has more intention than it shows, and that's confirmed when you look at the engine. Under the hood, the 345 Hemi V8 produced around 345 horsepower, a number that isn't just strong, it's serious, very serious, especially for a convertible of this size. And that completely changes the story, because this car wasn't built just to look good, it was built to keep up with the fastest, and it did. In period tests, it could reach 0 to 60 miles per hour in around 6.5 to 7 seconds, placing it easily among the top performers of its year. And that makes it one of the most underrated cars on this entire list, because it doesn't have the fame, it doesn't have the recognition, but it has the performance. There's a key detail. DeSoto was in a complicated position within Chrysler at the time. It needed to stand out. It needed to justify its place. And models like this Adventurer were part of that effort. More powerful, more aggressive, more focused. And even though the brand didn't survive much longer, this car left its mark. When you look at its value today, that's reflected as well. A 1957 DeSoto Adventurer convertible can easily exceed $100,000, with well-preserved examples reaching even higher figures. 1955 Ford Thunderbird. This car looks light, almost playful, and that's exactly what deceives you, because the Thunderbird wasn't born as a muscle car, nor as something brutal, nor as a machine built to dominate in a straight line. It was born as a response, Ford seeing the impact of European sports cars and deciding to create something of its own, but adapted to American taste, more comfortable, more usable, more refined, and that completely changes its approach. At first glance, it's compact, clean, with proportions far more restrained than the rest of this list. No excess, no aggression, no intention to intimidate. It looks easy, but it's not slow. Under the hood, the 292 V8 produced around 193 horsepower. Not the highest number in this video, but it doesn't need to be, because this car plays on a different field. Less weight, more balance, a more direct response than many of the big cars around it. And that translates into something very clear: efficiency. In period tests, it could reach 0 to 60 miles per hour in around 8 seconds, a very respectable figure considering its focus. And that's the contrast, because this car doesn't look designed to be fast, but it refuses to fall behind. There's a key detail. The Thunderbird was one of the first real attempts to create a personal luxury car, something that wasn't a pure sports car, but also not a traditional cruiser. And that concept worked, because this car doesn't try to be the fastest, it tries to be the most complete. And it succeeds. When you look at its value today, that's reflected as well. A 1955 Ford Thunderbird typically ranges between $40,000 and $90,000, depending on condition and originality. 1956 Dual-Ghia. This car doesn't look fast, it looks expensive, and that completely changes the expectation, because the Dual-Ghia wasn't born as a performance car. It was born as a luxury object, something exclusive, almost reserved for a very specific elite, actors, celebrities, people who didn't need to prove anything. And yet, this car had something more, something that wasn't obvious at first glance, because beneath that elegant design, beneath that refined body, there was a Chrysler V8, and not just any V8. Under the hood, it delivered around 260 to 270 horsepower, a very serious figure for the time, especially in a car that didn't seem interested in competing. And that's where it becomes interesting, because this car wasn't built to race, but it wasn't limited either, and that creates a very particular contrast. It's not aggressive, it's not light, it's not extreme, but when you accelerate, it responds. And that's not what you expect. In performance terms, it could reach 0 to 60 miles per hour in around 8 seconds, staying close to cars far more focused on performance. And that puts it in a unique position within this list. There's a key detail. The Dual-Ghia was produced in extremely low numbers, fewer than 120 units in total, and that makes it very rare today. But beyond the rarity, what really matters is its concept: European design, American mechanics, and completely exclusive in intention. When you look at its value today, that's reflected as well. A Dual-Ghia convertible can easily exceed $200,000, depending on condition and history. And now, I want to know something. Out of everything we've seen so far, which one truly surprised you the most? The Corvette that tells you exactly what it is? The Oldsmobile that doesn't look fast? The Bonneville that blends both worlds? Or this Dual-Ghia hiding power beneath pure luxury? I'll read you in the comments. 1959 Cadillac Eldorado Biarritz. This car shouldn't even be part of this conversation. And yet, it refuses to be left out, because everything about the Eldorado Biarritz points in a completely different direction. Extreme size, exaggerated design, absolute luxury. This is the kind of car you imagine gliding, not accelerating. Pure presence, not performance. Or at least, that's how it feels. But Cadillac never allowed its cars to be slow. And you can see that here. Under the hood, the 390 V8 produced around 345 horsepower, a very serious number, especially considering the size and weight of the car. And that changes everything. Because this isn't a light car, it isn't agile. It wasn't designed to be fast in the traditional sense. But it doesn't drag itself either. In performance terms, it could reach 0 to 60 miles per hour in around 8 to 9 seconds. Something that, for a convertible of this size, is no longer just acceptable. It's surprising, and that's the point. Because this car doesn't try to compete, but it refuses to fall behind. There's a key detail. The Eldorado represents the extreme of American luxury in the 1950s. Everything is big, everything is visible, everything is designed to make an impact, and yet, it works. Because Cadillac understood something important. Luxury shouldn't completely sacrifice capability, and that creates a very particular balance. When you look at its value today, that's reflected as well. A 1959 Cadillac Eldorado Biarritz can easily exceed $120,000, with exceptional examples reaching even higher. It's not the fastest, but it's probably the most impressive, because this car wasn't built to run, but it clearly can do it better than it should. 1957 Mercury Turnpike Cruiser. This car doesn't seem concerned with speed. It seems concerned with something else. design, presence, creating something that feels different on the road, and it succeeds. Because the Turnpike Cruiser is one of those cars you simply can't ignore. The wraparound windshield, the chrome details, the way everything feels larger than it needs to be. Everything is designed to stand out, not to go fast, or at least, that's how it appears. Because beneath all that design, there's something more serious. Under the hood, the 368 V8 produced around 290 to 300 horsepower, a solid number, especially considering the car's focus. But what matters here isn't just the number, it's the whole package, because this car wasn't designed to be light, or agile, or sporty. And yet, when you compare it, it delivers. In performance terms, it could reach 0 to 60 miles per hour in around 8 seconds, staying close to cars that, on paper, should be ahead. And that creates a very clear contrast, because this car doesn't communicate speed, but it refuses to fall behind. When you look at its value today, that's reflected as well. A 1957 Mercury Turnpike Cruiser convertible typically ranges between $30,000 and $70,000, depending on condition and originality. 1954, Kaiser Darrin. This car shouldn't be the one closing this list. And that's exactly why it's perfect for it. Because everything about the Kaiser Darrin breaks the logic. It's not the most powerful, it's not the most famous, it's not the fastest on paper, but it is one of the most unexpected. Imagine the context. Early 1950s America, Kaiser trying to compete with much bigger brands, with more resources, more presence. And instead of following the same path, it did this. A completely different roadster, smaller, lighter, with a fiberglass body at a time when almost no one was using that material, and that alone already sets it apart. But there's one detail that changes everything. The doors, sliding. They don't open outward, they disappear into the body. And in 1954, that wasn't just rare, it was ahead of its time. And that defines this car completely, because it doesn't try to be the strongest, it tries to be the most different. Under the hood, a 2.6-liter inline-six producing around 90 horsepower. Not an impressive number, but in a car this light, it was enough for something very specific, to feel agile, to feel alive. And that changes the entire experience, because this car doesn't compete in brute force, it competes in sensation. In performance terms, it could reach 0 to 60 miles per hour in around 11 seconds, far from the fastest cars on this list. But that's not the point, because this car shouldn't even be here. And yet, it fits. There's a key detail. Production was extremely limited, with just over 400 units built, and that makes it an absolute rarity today. But beyond the number, what really matters is the idea, because this car wasn't built to follow the rules. It was built to ignore them. When you look at its value today, that's reflected as well. A Kaiser Darrin typically ranges between $80,000 and $150,000, depending on condition and originality. And when you look at all these cars together, you start to notice something important. Big engines, real power, performance that didn't fit their purpose. And that's what makes them so interesting, because it's not just about numbers, it's about contrast. And now I want to know something out of everything you saw in this video. Which one truly surprised you the most? The one you least expected to be here? The one that made you think, this shouldn't be this fast? I'll read you in the comments. And if you want to see how this idea evolved, you need to watch this video about the fastest convertibles of the 1960s, because that's where everything becomes more extreme, more direct, and much more serious. And when you compare it to this, you'll understand that this was just the beginning. See you in the next video.